Hey everyone, Kevin Mitchell here, and it's time for another one of my Fired Up Friday rants. And today I'm going to be talking about and ranting about Black Lives Matter versus what I've been seeing a lot in my Facebook news feed, and that's contrasting with All Lives Matter. And the reason why I want to talk about it is, number one, it's a hot button issue, but number two, and more importantly, racism is alive and unfortunately flourishing in society today. It's not just against black people, it's against all kinds of different races, and I see it, I live it, it frustrates the hell out of me, and that's why I'm talking about it today. And this All Lives Matter versus Black Lives Matter is a perfect example of how it's still alive today. And sometimes it's alive without even us knowing it. And I'll give you, started off and how it started was when I first saw this hashtag in the movement of Black Lives Matter. The first thing, as a white male, the first instinct that I had was, wait a second, no, that's bullshit. All lives matter. So I get it, that's what you thought right away. But then I started reading and researching, and it was like, okay, wait a second, this movement makes sense. Maybe I don't like the hashtag Black Lives Matter, but I get it. You know, black African Americans have went through hell and back to hell and back again since they were brought over here on ships as slaves a few hundred years ago. We're not talking 1,000 years ago. We're not talking 5,000 years ago. We're talking the last couple hundred years. They were slaves. You know, we're talking 75 years ago. They weren't even allowed to use the same fucking washrooms and same restaurants as us. So people that were alive, my grandpa turning 85 actually this weekend, born and raised in Dresden, remembers when blacks weren't allowed in the restaurant, you know, in Dresden, Ontario, in his lifetime. I'm talking to my grandpa about this, and he remembers at the time thinking, well, this is bullshit, like, why aren't they allowed in? So, as much as racism is a big problem in our society, it's not, everybody doesn't feel that way, and it's like people like myself, and if you're watching this video and you feel like racism has absolutely no part in our society today, this is a great video to share and talk about, because we got to be more vocal. The North Americans that don't feel that, you know, racism has no part, we got to speak up, and that's why I'm talking today. And the article that's attached to this video is really important to read, and it was awesome because as I read it, I'm like, yeah, that's it. It hits the nail on the head on why Black Lives Matter is, you know, what it's about, and why me as a white person shouldn't be offended by it, shouldn't be, you know, sitting there posting bullshit about all lives matter. Of course all lives matter, but this movement is so much more than that. And in the article it talks about it, the guy puts it perfectly, and it's like you're sitting around the table with your family, and your dad's dishing out all the food, boom, 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 brother, sister, mom gets all the food, and you don't get any food. And you say to your dad, like, hey, wait a second, I should get my fair share of food. And your dad looks at you and says, yeah, you know something, Kevin? Everyone should get their fair share of food. Well, but everyone got their fair share of food but me. So when I'm saying I should get my fair share of food, Dad, I'm really implying that I should get my fair share of food too. And by my dad in this situation, I'm not talking my dad, but in the example that says, when the father sits there and says to me, well, yeah, of course everyone should get their fair share of food. Well, that's dismissing the issue and not even talking about it anymore. So when I'm seeing this bullshit on my Facebook feed that all lives matter, guys, we're missing the point. And it's ignorant, and it's rude, and it's short-sighted to sit there and talk about all lives matter, because of course they do. But when the Black Lives Matter, the implication here is Black Lives Matter too. So that's a really important distinction, because when we say all lives matter, boom, we're done, it's all over, and we're again ignoring the major racial undertones here. You know, in the United States of America, specifically, especially the farther you go south, the worse this problem is. And the fact of the matter is, there's racist people, there's people that exude racism in every single profession, including police officers. And it's a really big and serious societal issue that needs to change. Things need to change, because at the end of the day, from cops on all through, and it's not just that, it's how they're treated in general at stores, out in public. Because the color of somebody's skin doesn't mean they should be treated any worse than somebody with a different colored skin. And this starts with videos out there, you know, there's so many of them where police act differently
because of the color, because of the person that they're dealing with, a black person versus a white person. And if you're sitting there watching this video and you say, Kevin, you're wrong, but you better look in the mirror real quick, because you're full of shit. And if you want to keep on telling yourself these bullshit stories, you go ahead. But I'm not going to live in the dark like that. I'm not going to live with my head stuck in the sand, because at the end of the day, it is different. There's a different cultural undertones that have gone, we're talking less than 100 years ago. These people aren't even allowed, black people aren't even allowed to freaking ride the same buses, drink in the same water fountains, use the same fucking washrooms. This is not a long time ago, guys. There's people still alive that have passed that on to their kids and passed on to their kids. It's generational bullshit. And that's why I'm shooting the video today, is because let's be sensitive. If you aren't racist, and that's why it's funny, I got in a Facebook conversation the other day, and I sat there and said, anybody who thinks all lives matter and doesn't realize it, as soon as you read this article that's attached, if you don't go, aha, I get it, and almost feel like, okay, I feel a little bit bad, but from not really understanding the movement, that's cool. If you didn't understand it, you read it, you get it. If you read this article and you still think that the Black Lives Matter movement's bullshit and should be all lives matter, then you are being a racist. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm not gonna, sugarcoat it any possible way. You're a racist, and I encourage you to really look in a mirror and think about why. Is it because your dad or your grandpa kept on saying all kinds of racist bullshit to you as you grew up, and it was inbred in you, so now all of a sudden you're now a grown man or a grown woman spewing out racist bullshit just because you're not smart enough to realize the bullshit that you were fed growing up? If you are being racist, if you have racist undertones within yourself, do yourself, and more importantly, do our society a big favor and look in the damn mirror. Realize where you're being a racist and where your racist attitudes come from. When you can look at them and realize, and if you can look in the mirror and honestly say that you are being a racist in certain situations, that is the first step for us as a society of getting over these racial issues. And that is going to bring so much more peace, so much more joy, so much more enjoyment through our whole entire society. So I look forward to the comments on this Fired Up Friday video, and make sure, if you, especially if you agree, share the shit out of this video. Let's get it going. Let's get more of a movement for us out there that don't feel the same way as the other racist group that's continuing to spread negativity throughout our society. Talk soon.